my name is Matthew Grant. I'm a Senior Communities Officer with Thriving Communities in South Ayrshire Council.
How did you use the Improving Gender Balance and Equalities resources?
Okay, so probably best to start at the beginning. So I thought it was good to look at the data first of all. So we obviously collated a little bit of a data summary, looking at participation, looking at achievement, looking at well-being.
How did you use the data guide?
I felt like the data guide was a good place to start at the beginning. We've got a system that we use to kind of collate different data for young people that we're working with, because it's predominantly young people that I work with. So what I did was kind of generate a quick report based on gender, looking at some key areas such as well-being, participation and achievement, for example. And it was really useful for me to have a bit of an insight into who it is we're working with, and what the stats are, what are the young people telling us, and whether that varies across the gender split. For example, if young people are telling us, more boys or girls are telling us that they feel maybe more confident, or they feel they've got more things to learn, for example, it's useful for us to be able to get an insight into that and just take a step back, get a snapshot of how the data's looking, and be able to take things forward. And another thing that was really useful was for us to look at the staff. You know, what kind of staff are we working with, and how does that vary across the full sector? Obviously, I looked at we do youth clubs, so we do kind of predominantly work in the evening. We also do lots of school-based work as well. So it was useful for us to understand who's working with our key targeted groups. We are maybe a bit unique in South Ayrshire. I don't know if other places have it, but we do have quite a high number of specifically girls groups, which was quite good for us to understand what are the stats around, like I said, participation, achievement, well-being for girls groups, and who's working, what staff are working with those groups. And I think before we had this opportunity, that's not something we really tended to just specifically focus on. There was maybe other characteristics or data we were looking at, but for us to focus on that, it was ideal. And the other thing that was really useful for us was to look at the gender split of participation in terms of SIMD as well. So who are we working with, and what key areas are the young people coming from?
How did you use the self-evaluation framework?
I thought the self-evaluation framework was really simple and easy to use. I tended to start with the challenge questions. So what I did was look at some of the challenge questions and prepare a simple report, which was basically an idea for me to look at what work we're doing and how is it meeting some of the outcomes that were suggested in the challenge questions. For example, we look at participation. I looked at, are we working with an even split in terms of gender? That was kind of mentioned in the report. I also was able to look at some of the way that we use and collate information. For example, we've got display boards. So how are we using these in a way that's up to date, that young people can respond to, young people can get information from?
What was the impact of using the resources? What did you learn about gender balance and equalities in your CLD service?
One of the first things I learned was that we need to make a priority to look at the UNCRC and how we're engaging young people around that. So in response to the challenge questions and the framework, we adopted a simple toolkit that was youth-friendly. And from that, our youth workers have taken that on board as part of their programme delivery across several youth clubs in the area, which has been a great asset. So something else that we learned was that we need to look at the way that we are portraying information to young people. So what we've done is we've amended a lot of our social media content and our display boards to make sure that it is inclusive as possible. It's celebrating young people's differences, achievements, and that there's balance in there across the diverse groups that we're working with. Yeah, so we have several teams in South Ayrshire, and one of the teams is looking at developing an equality impact assessment, and that's something that we're looking to roll out as a recommendation from the report I made. So that's going to give other services the chance to look at gender around participation, achievement, mental health and wellbeing. So that's hopefully something that will benefit young people, not just in the area I work in, but across South Ayrshire. One of the biggest changes for us was our quality assurance and how we've changed that. So we've now, in our partnership agreements, we've now been able to look at who we're working with in the schools, and we've saw that I think it's something like 3 times more male referrals than female. So we've now been able to look at our quality assurance and say, who are we working with, and then amend our partnership agreements and actually look at how the referrals are made for the schools. Because if it's only one, you know, kind of one gender that's getting those referrals. Is there a reason for that? Is there gaps in the referral process? Another thing we've looked at is gender by SIMD. So obviously we're in Ayr North just now, which is in the top 5% in SIMD data. But a good thing for us was to look at how that's split across gender. So we've actually saw that 80% of young people that we're working with in this area come from SIMD 1 to 3, and the gender split has actually been about 55-45. So it's pretty balanced, and that's something that was really important for us to say that we're representing the entirety of young people that are living in the area.
What will you do now? What changes will you make to your service?
We have, in South Ayrshire, we have Youth Work Development Group, kind of quarterly meetings, and as a result of it, I had a wee kind of small input at the last one and just explained to the staff some of the things I'd worked on, presented the framework, presented the data guide and how that can be used in a simple way like I'd used myself. And since then, 2 of our other teams have taken this on board, have ran with it, and our quality assurance procedures have now been adapted to actually capture gender by SIMD data in our reports, so it's almost like it's just been added in to things we're already doing and people have embraced it.
Do you have any advice for other CLD providers thinking of using their resources?
I think advice I would probably give would be to start small. Start something that you know that you can collect data from. For example, it would be easy to sit here and say, I would like to collect data across South Ayrshire. I wanted to say, I'll collect data in an area that I work in and that I know very well, which is Ayr North. So that would be a very useful piece of advice I would give.